Hello and welcome to this video. This is lesson 2 of unit 6, chords and arc measure. Let's get started. Here's our agenda for this lesson. We're going to cover angle measures, inscribed angles, and the congruent chords theorem. Our objective: scholars will be able to determine an unknown measure of a circle, so that can be an arc measure or a chord length or an inscribed angle, using the congruent chords theorem, and then our big idea is circles. Here's the guiding question for these notes. If two chords in a circle, remember this is a chord right here, have the same measure, what is true of the arc, this arc right here, and this arc, and the inscribed angle, this angle right here, and this angle right here? So what is true of those two arcs and those two angles if these two chords are the same? The congruent chords theorem tells us the relationship between the things I just mentioned. So if two chords are congruent, if and only if the inscribed angles are congruent. What does that mean? Well, if you have two chords like this, and they're the same, then the inscribed angle on both of those chords is going to be the same. This angle and this angle are the same. Now, if those two angles are the same, then we know that these arcs on the outside, which is the distance from here all the way around to here, and the distance from here all the way around to here, those arc measures are also the same. Two chords the same, the arc measure is the same, and the inscribed angles are the same. So what does this look like in practice? Here's an example. What is the measure of the arc YZ? Okay, so the arc YZ is going to be right here, and I noticed that I've got two chords and they're both the same measure. They're both 30. So I know I can use the theorem from before, and this angle, this arc measure is going to have to be the same as this one. So my answer here is 86 degrees. Here's another example. What is the measure of the angle, or the inscribed angle, TVU? So that's going to be this one right here. Well, notice that this chord and this chord are the same length. Therefore, by the theorem that I just mentioned, this angle and this angle must be the same. So my answer here is going to be 57 degrees. We're asked here to find the value of A. Now notice that this arc measure and this arc measure are the same, which means by our theorem that this chord and this chord have to be the same. So 6A has to equal 8A minus 16. We can solve this. Minus 8A gives me on the left negative 2A equals negative 16. Divided by negative 2. Negative 16 divided by negative 2 gives me 8. So my answer here for the value A is 8. One important note I need to mention before we try the next problem is that the total arc measure of a circle is always 360 degrees. So in other words, if we only know part of the circle, perhaps the measure of this arc right here, say it's 60 degrees, well, I know the whole thing is 360, so the rest of the circle is going to have to be 300 degrees. So we're going to need that in the next problem. Okay, in this problem we're told that these two circles, E and H, are congruent, and we're asked, what is the value of P? Now notice here that we have a chord of length 12 and a chord of length 12, so we know we're going to be able to use our theorem from before. But we don't have a measure here. However, we do have a measure here, and by the the important note I just mentioned, this part is going to have to be 360 minus 4P. Because the total arc measure is 360 and this arc measure is 4P, so that what's left over has to be 360 minus 4P. Now we can set these two things equal to each other and solve for P. So we got 360 minus 4P is going to equal P plus 20. I'm going to go ahead and move 4P to the right, and I get 360 equals 5P plus 20. And then let's move 20 to the left. 360 minus 20 is 340. That equals 5P. Lastly, I divide by 5 on both sides, and I get P equals 68. Alright, so that was all the examples we're going to try. If you want more of a challenge, you felt like this lesson was too easy, check out the extension titled Intersecting Chords. Here's the iExcel for y'all to practice. Geometry U6. Please be sure to send me an email or join me during my office hours on Zoom if you have any questions. Best of luck.